That sounds fun. That sounds fun.
Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of That Sounds Fun, The Seasons. I'm your host, Annie F. Downs. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Today on the show, we are answering a question that a lot of you have been asking, me too. Why does the winter feel so long? Before we dive into this conversation, though, I want to tell you about one of our incredible sponsors. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Listen, we can get hyper-focused on being independent. I can. We love being an independent woman, but also we're not built to do everything on our own. Having the support of friends, family, mentors, and counselors is so helpful in living the life we want. My counselor has been a huge part of my support system, my board of directors for about a decade now. So as you think about who you need to help you and support you, consider if it's time to find a counselor. BetterHelp is such a great place to start. It is done fully online, so it makes therapy affordable and convenient. You get access to a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties, and you can easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/thatsoundsfun today, and you're going to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/thatsoundsfun. Today on the show, I get to talk with my friends, Rebecca St. James and her husband, Cubbie Fink. You may know Cubbie Fink as one of the founding members of Foster the People. He's also an incredible producer, a creative force, and joining him is his wife, our friend, Rebecca St. James, Grammy and Dove Award-winning Christian artist, worship leader, author, and all-around wonderful human. I think we're all feeling a little over this winter at this point. So we're going to talk about why it feels so long and how we handle it. And we get to talk about Cubbie and Beck's new book about their life and their marriage called Lasting Ever. If you're following along in your TSF Seasons guidebook, you're going to want to take notes on page 25. As always, if you still haven't gotten the guidebook and you'd like that, especially because spring pages are coming soon, we're going to email them out on March 17th. You can find all of that at anniefdowns.com/seasons. So here's my conversation with my friends, Cubbie Fink and Rebecca St. James.
That sounds fun.
Cubbie, you've never been on That Sounds Fun. Are you nervous? What have you been told? What have you heard?
I've heard it's fun, so not nervous.
And he knows that you are so, we just talked about it off air, but you are so deep in my circle of trust.
Yeah.
Like there's so
Mutual.
much love. I just feel, I
Yeah.
hope that you just feel the
Yes.
friend love just emanating
Yes.
right now because it's there. And he
Yes.
feels that. He
Yeah.
knows when we hang out, we get
Yeah.
the best girl time ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
He's just welcomed into the fold.
I'm just offended you haven't heard that I'm like a journalist to be afraid of. No? None of that? No.
Unfortunately,
Tough.
not.
No, yeah, guess what? It's true. It's really true. Thank y'all for joining us as we are finishing up winter. We are walking toward the spring.
Hallelujah.
Right? I mean, it just feels, I think everyone is feeling that at this point of why has this felt so long? We all kind of talk for a minute, Beck, one of the things I love is you're Australian. And so all
it's
of,
literally not winter right now.
yes.
Yeah.
So well, let me first do that. And then we're going to go to the serious question. What does it feel like in Australia when a majority of all the American media and entertainment is cold in winter and like Christmas movies are snowy and
Yeah.
y'all are at the beach?
That's the only moment that you kind of wrestle a little bit with it growing up, is when you're singing about "I'm dreaming of a white Christmas" and you just going, "This is not my experience,"
Yeah.
and will never be.
Yeah.
will never be. Like
right.
unless I
you
moved to the
Yeah.
other side of the world. But
Yeah.
at that point, growing up till I was 14, I didn't know that was going to happen. So, but I have gotten to experience the white Christmases, and he proposed to me.
The
on
story.
a white Christmas in Tennessee, which is just so cool.
A tender Tennessee Christmas, some might
Yes,
say.
it was. Some might say. Like
So
in the
do
ground.
y'all, this is going to sound so uneducated because I've never been to Australia. Are there different Christmas songs in Australia about the summer?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know
That's
of.
actually a good question.
It's a really
Yeah.
somebody should do it though.
Hard-hitting
Yeah.
journalism.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yes, it is.
I just assume there's a chance that there's an entire culture of Christmas summer that I just have never been exposed to because I've never
Swimming
gone
in
there.
the pool at Christmas.
See, that's your next album.
All right, there it is.
I'm here to serve.
Yeah, thank you.
I like it.
Okay, so for all of us, we're living in winter. And one of the things we keep talking about this year is no matter what's happening in the weather outside, you can be in a winter in your life. And you can be experiencing winter in some
100%.
really profound ways.
Even if you're in a summer or a spring, it could be so beautiful outside,
exactly
but your
right.
internal winter is
So
present.
tell me what y'all do. I mean, there's a whole chapter in your new book called The Winter Season, which was one of the reasons one of my 1,000 reasons I'm glad to have you here. But what do you do when the winter feels long? Like, let's just get to it. What do you do?
Can I tell you something that's really fresh, actually, that I don't think I've ever really spoken about before, actually, other than maybe with Cubbie. But I felt this particular winter that God said, I want you to have eyes for the beauty of this season.
Wow.
And I want you to look at it through this lens of like intentionally looking for the beauty and for the good. And it was more this like physical call to it. It was more like, okay, look out at the skeleton trees and I know you want to see green and you want to see life. And that brings you a lot of joy, but there's beauty there to be seen. Look at it, the branches against the sky and the loveliness of that. And it's just been really interesting. And not that I've, given tremendous amounts of time, to this concept. But I do think he was just trying to encourage me in this physical world to do something that I can do also in my emotional world. So instead of feeling like this winter's so threatening, I'm cold, I don't want to be cold, I don't want to have to bundle up every time I go out, I don't like being cold. And as an Australian, that is my thing. Yeah. I mean, I love warm, I love being outside. But in emotional times too, where I'm just feeling cold and sad, to not feel so threatened by it, and just for him to go, there's beauty there too, Beck. Anyway, that's recent. That's just a really recent, almost a bit of an epiphany of going, just don't be so threatened by it.
Yes.
Both the emotional winter as well as the physical.
We just had Maddie Jackson on, and she wrote a book on grief, and she said it's just every day you ask God for the hope for that day.
Yeah.
It's good.
So it's almost like you're reminding us as well to like just look for the beauty in today.
Yes.
And if today's winter, just look for it and
Yes.
find something, and then let the season progress.
Yes.
Cubbie, what about when you think about a long winter? This is going to be a sexist comment I'm about to make.
Okay.
Congratulations. I think the men in my life think they can do more to fix and change. Like, well, what can I do? What should I do? And so is that true? Is that true? I mean, do you ever think like, I can get us out of this? Like, I mean, in the book, in the winter season, there is some movement of you going like, what's mine to do here? How do we know what's ours to do when winter feels long and what's ours to just let God hold?
Yeah, I think that is such a delicate balance,
Right.
because I think we don't want to get ahead of God, but we also don't want to become so complacent that we just get stuck. And I think finding that balance of being proactive to the point where you're still kind of on the heels of Jesus but not passing him is kind of where we're called to reside in the saying, living in the dust of your rabbi, and just kind of being right on the heels of Jesus, but not getting ahead of him. And I think, as men, as doers, as fixers, it's easy to kind of want to just charge ahead. And in the winter season that we speak about in the book, I think there was just a yearning in my heart to have something to put my hand to, because it was suddenly I was thrust into this season where I didn't know what to do. I'd come out of this very long career that I thought was going to last much longer than it did, and because of a lot of reasons that I didn't see coming, kind of thrust me into this season of unknown. And I was desperately crying out to God, what do I do with my time now? What do I do with the things that you give me, the giftings, the talents, all of these things? Just show me the field, show me the plow, let me start plowing. And I was met with silence, which was probably what made that season most challenging. I mean, there was a lot of external factors, but probably the spiritual component was compounded by the fact that it was the first time in my life that I was at a major crossroad and God wasn't infinitely clear on what to do next. So the silence was hard. But I think, like you said, just trusting the Lord, that the Lord is giving you just enough to stay on his heels and just putting one foot in front of the other to remain in that place.
And I think that we can try to rush out of the winter too, just because of the pain of it or the grief of it or the loss of it. And I remember right when the season turned, we were in Alaska, when the season turned from winter to spring for us in that most darkest winter, of our marriage. And we've been married nearly 14 years, which is wild. But when that turned, and it was on a particular day, it was the most instantaneous change of my life. I remember, I'd been in worship. I walk off stage. I profess what had happened, to my brother. I think God's just done this incredible work in my life, freeing me. I think he might have just called me back to music. And immediately after that, I sensed God say, don't rush ahead of me. I've got this. Just wait and see what I've got for you. Like with his fingers under his chin, just going, you won't even believe it.
Yes.
Just trust me, but don't rush ahead of me. And I think humanly, because we don't want to be in pain, we can try to run out of that winter season, and instead of letting kind of that process be what it needs to be. And I've done that, and I can tend to do that, just like try to run ahead of God. Maybe he's doing this. Maybe this is the reason. Maybe this is the resolve. Maybe this is what he's going to do, and try to orchestrate it instead of just going, Lord, you've got this, and I trust you. And it's really now, probably 7 years after that, that I'm starting to see the fullness of that spring and the fullness of the why.
Really?
The fullness. I think I thought I knew what it was those couple years after, and it wasn't what I thought it was. And I'm only having that revealed now, which is just wild.
That is
the
so
purpose
fun.
of the winter.
Dear everyone, this is why we journal. Because then we can remember and catch all of that when it's happening. Beck, I love you so much, but my favorite line in the book is a Cubbie line. That's sorry to tell you.
This is the man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm proud of him. This is good.
This is page 170, Cubbie. You say, here is a truth I eventually arrived at in this season. This is from the winter season chapter. When you don't know what to do, do what worked before and let God take it from there. I've heard pastors say, when you don't hear God, do the last thing you heard him say.
Yeah.
Will you talk about that for a second? Because there's got to be people listening to us right now going like, well, I've tried everything and nothing's worked, and I've asked God and he's silent.
Yeah.
And so what was your process? How do you know the last thing God said? How do you know what to put your hands to?
Yeah, and I think that comment stems from what you've heard from pastors as well. It's kind of resorting back to that last moment that you had an encounter with God where you felt like he gave you a bit of direction, a breadcrumb to go in a certain direction, or you go back to the things that you know that he's grown you in already, and the things that he's given you passions and talents for. And I think for me, because I was being met by silence, because I didn't know what to do, because I was dealing with this internal pain that was working its way up to the surface, it was it became sort of a joint venture. It was, okay, I know that I'm passionate about Jesus. I know I'm passionate about ministry. I had a whole history of doing ministry with youth. So it's like, okay, let's explore that avenue. So that was a practical thing that I could go and explore.
Yeah.
Ended up getting involved with a youth group at a local church. Ended up getting hired as an interim youth pastor. So that was sort of practical, pursuit, but still, ministry and kind of the spiritual component as well. But then the internal journey began simultaneously, because there was a lot that was sort of beginning to present itself that there was things that needed to be dealt with. I think there was definitely a question mark for a lot of my life over a season or a period of my youth that I just didn't have any memories surrounding, and which was always strange to me because I have an incredibly vivid memory.
Yeah.
I mean,
clearly you have memories in here that I'm like, I don't remember what I had for lunch last week. And you're like, I was on a rock.
Yeah.
And I was listening.
Yes. I mean, some of my earliest memories are laying in the crib and watching the mobile spin over my head. So it's just
wild.
I remember everything. There's one season I have no memories from. And so that was always strange to me.
Yeah.
And in this winter season, like I mentioned, there was a lot of external factors that were really hard. It just felt like blow after blow after blow. But even with as hard as it was, my reactions to things were not congruent with the things I was reacting to. I use the analogy in the book of if Rebecca was to reach out and touch my arm just gently, I would probably just look at her and say, "What do you need?"
Yeah.
But if I had a gaping wound in my arm and she reached out and touched me in the same place, I would have a much more visceral reaction and jump back and maybe scream a little bit. my reactions weren't screaming in that season, but my emotional reactions were the equivalent of screaming. And I would just get spun out emotionally and just kind of end up in a tailwind or in a tailspin. And so it was proof that there was something going on a lot deeper that needed to be dealt with. So that kind of sent me on the journey of, okay, let's dig into this and see what's there, and really kind of came to the place of saying, I need help. I need help doing this. Found a counselor and kind of began that journey of uncovering that
And
pain.
maybe only in the quiet did all that have a chance
Totally,
to.
100%. And we've said that so many times. It's like, if the hardness of that season was only for us to kind of deal with things that would have
Needed
gone
to come up.
undealt with, because when life is easy, it's easy to cover up the pain.
Yeah,
we don't
to run
grow
away.
when life is good, but when life is hard, we're kind of forced to deal with the stuff.
And the end result of you dealing with it, and I'm so proud of Cubbie that he did, face some of this childhood traumas, some of these things that were so difficult. The end result of pressing into that and going to God with it or getting the counseling that you need is freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's freedom for him to be the best version of himself that he can be. For me, I've done a lot of counseling too. For me to be the best version of myself, for us to be the best version of ourselves for our children, for our friends, for our community. So it's freedom, right? It's not pointless pain. And I think that we also need to remember about that when it comes to winters. God, he's so intentional, and he redeems and he restores, but there is purpose in it.
Yeah.
I'm going to direct this question to you, but I think you're going to have to be the one who answers it. Did all those kids in the youth group think it was so cool that the guy from Foster the People was their youth pastor?
Yes.
Yeah, see, I knew you had to answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
That
there's
had
some
to have
big,
been
big
very
eyes.
helpful marketing-wise for the church.
Big eyes.
It was fun.
I think that would have to be like,
He
wait,
didn't
sorry,
really have to
you're
win
youth
them
pastor?
over.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly
They
right.
were listening.
Will y'all tell the story of when y'all met? It is the cutest meet cute in the actual world. And I know it's in the book and people can read it, but I like in the, cuffing season, going into people getting out in the spring and meeting somebody. Tell us your meet cute. It's adorable.
You go first.
Okay. Well, I'll set it up, and then Cub can talk about
Yes, I may ask questions in the middle.
So I was living in LA. I was doing some acting as well as music and, all of that, book writing, all the things. But I was in LA for acting, and I had this amazing roommate, Lila Rose, and she invited me to this philosophy group, which was started by this Catholic guy who wanted to lay a foundation for theology through philosophy. And it was so interesting and so fun, and such great conversations with lots of young creatives in LA. So I had started going to this pretty regular event. Meanwhile, Cub was not going to that because he was working on a TV show during that time and working crazy hours. But I met two of his best friends, and they became a part of my community. And on the way to this particular event, which was a wrap party for a TV show that he was at, I was hanging out with those guys, and he was at this wrap party. And on the way, drive over, they're like, okay, the guy that you're about to meet is one of our best friends. He's like literally the best guy on the planet. He's super hot. I'm quite sure they said, these are Christian guys, but I'm quite sure they were like, he's really hot.
I'm a Christian as well, and I know when
you
people
say
are hot. So yeah, that's fine. We're allowed to feel that.
100%. And you're about to meet him, and we just adore him. So they were kind of selling him, but they really hadn't said much about it before that. I'd been friends with them for months.
Yeah.
On the other end, Cubbie had heard a little bit about
Were you
about
Rebecca
me.
St. James out there, or were you Rebecca Smallbone?
Yeah, I was just Beck, really, to people out there. I mean, generally, I think I'd get to know people, and then they'd figure out kind of who I was or my background. But that's part of why I enjoyed being in California for 10 years, was I was just a person. And if people were friendly to me, they were friendly to me just because I was a person.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm on the way to this
meanwhile,
event.
she's on the way, and she's just heard of you. This is the great part. It's all great, but
Side note, I will get this far, and then he can take it. My song "Wait for Me" that I wrote for Cubbie, like maybe a decade before I knew him, and sang it around the world. That I'm waiting for my husband. And I was lonely during those years of, singing this. There's a line in the song that says, waiting for the look in your eyes when we meet for the first time. And when we did connect across that room, there was that special thing that like my song. So that's
and that
all
had
I'll
not
say.
happened to anybody else.
No.
Yeah.
No. And I'd never been in love to this point, too. I will say that. Anyway,
How old
arrived
are you?
at
Do you
this
mind me
event.
asking? Sorry.
32. Was I 32?
Yeah, one.
32. Yeah, around there.
31, 32, yeah.
Yeah, I was 33 when we got married. So
Yeah.
okay, handoff.
Handoff. So I had also been a part of this philosophy group. It was actually my 2 roommates that she had met there.
Ah, got it.
And so myself and my roommates and a handful of other guys had gotten involved with this group, and I had attended kind of off and on for a couple of years at that point. During the season she started attending, I was not attending because I was just slammed on this TV show.
What were you doing on the show?
Everything. It was one
Okay,
of those.
so you like worked for it. You
Yeah,
were, like,
I was in kind of part of the production team.
Yeah,
so,
great.
and it was a small crew, so it was wearing a ton
Hustling,
of hats.
yeah.
And it was,
Garage Mahal, like they
That's
did.
right, it says
Jay
that.
Leno's
That's right.
Jay Leno's garage.
That's
and,
right.
Yeah.
which, yeah, I mean, it was fun, but just crazy.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, she starts attending. She starts to get to know some of my friends. Her name starts getting brought up. And it's Rebecca this, Rebecca that. She's so cool. She's so authentic. She's the real deal. So ears are obviously perked hearing
Why
these.
are you not dating his friends?
I just.
They just like didn't like her. They didn't.
I
Come
mean,
home
they're
and say that.
attractive,
Yeah.
and I got along great with them. It just.
They liked her.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So there's like a house full of dudes who are like, you or me. Okay, great. This is what I. Great. This is extra content.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not. That's
Behind-
not
Not in the book.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You only hear that here
Okay,
on
so
any
they're
show.
talking about her while you are sitting on the couch, and you're like,
Oh, yeah.
all right, boys.
Totally. So,
that's sweet.
so obviously there's some interest there, and then come to find out that this Rebecca they're talking about is Rebecca St. James, which was very interesting because I was familiar with her name,
Yeah.
but not her music. But I absolutely should have been. Grew up in the church. Grew up listening to Christian music. We had her albums in our house. I have memories of flipping through our CD collection and
Yeah.
seeing her record, but for whatever reason, never pulling it out of the jacket
Yeah.
and putting it in the player. In retrospect, I do believe that was some divine protection because it
100%.
absolutely protected that first encounter.
Yeah.
It was authentic. It was real. I didn't have her up on a pedestal. It was just boy meets girl and kind of a magic moment. So fast forward to this rap party that I really didn't want to be at. It was at some random house in the Hollywood Hills and just kind of the thing you do in Hollywood, and it's more out of obligation than really anything else. But out of a sense of loyalty, I was like, all right, I'll go. But if I'm going to go, I'm going to invite my friends. And so I'm pulling up to the house and I call my roommates and I was like, hey, come bail me out. I got to go to this dumb party. And they're like, we love dumb parties. We'll be right there. And by
And
the
how
way,
old are you, by the way? Sorry.
I was 27, 28.
Yeah.
28, yeah. So they're like, we're on our way. And by the way, we're hanging out with Rebecca. I was like, bring her along.
Yeah.
So 20, 30 minutes go by. I'm kind of buried in the living room with a bunch of people in conversation. And it's kind of one of those mid-century modern split-level situations where the living room's a little bit lower than the entryway. And
Yeah.
You can hear he's a director, right? He just
love
sees
it.
things in
Yes, I
such
love it.
detail.
Yeah.
And I kind of look up to the entryway. I see the front door open, and sure enough, there come my roommates. And they cause a bit of a scene because they're both very bronzed from beach volleyball and long blonde hair.
Yeah.
And so they walk through the door, and then Rebecca crosses the threshold. And it was literally one of those magic movie moments where time just started to slow down. The music faded. Wind was blowing through her hair. Doves
Not
come flying through
really.
the air.
Not really.
I mean, not to that degree, but it was
special.
It was a special moment. Like there was absolutely a moment where from across the room we locked eyes and something happened, and I just sensed just such a depth and beauty and just so much there in that first glance.
Yeah.
And the funny part is she enters the house, and right behind her was the leader of the philosophy group.
Philosophy guy, as he's called in the
Philosophy
book.
guy.
There's philosophy guy, and then there is production girl.
Producer girl.
Yeah, we've got
Yeah.
a couple of other characters trying to ruin this.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
you
you
are.
can get the full scoop,
Yeah.
guys,
Uh-huh.
if you read the book.
Uh-huh.
Too. Yes.
You are so funny in the story in the book to be like, and then he was trying to do this and she was trying to do this and we were just trying to talk to each other. I was like, oh, I've been producer girl too many times. I've
no.
been on the other side of this. I totally understand. Okay, so talk to me about in that moment, because let me tell you, the cynic in me, not about y'all, about myself and about my own life, is like, I've maybe felt that 3 times or thought I did because I haven't felt it, you know? So then you go, well, but then it didn't work, or then I had to try too hard, or then he ghosted, or whatever. So what did you do from that moment that made it different? Because that moment was different. And then what did you do in response to the different moment?
I mean, a lot of times with dating, and I dated quite a lot at that point. And, you know, I always tried to be real intentional about who I was dating, like that this has a chance of being the one. But I'd never fallen in love. And, you know, I probably did guard my heart a lot. And I did get hurt a lot. I was disappointed a lot. So I think generally when I met someone, I'd be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm attracted to them, but I'm not sure that I really like them. Like I wouldn't admit that to myself. But with him, I remember driving away going, I like that guy. And there was a depth and a wisdom and it's just a deep well component to Cubbie. I mean, I was super attracted to him, obviously, but there was just this other component of this guy's been through some things in his life. And I feel like I could respect him. Like I think there was pretty instant respect. And I feel like he has a similar soul to me. And that, I tell you what, that first perception of, I think this could be almost like my male counterpart, you know, that we have a similar soul is so true because he's so different to me. Like he's quieter, more introverted, more guarded. I'm like, you know, outgoing, very extroverted, just, you know, oldest child, all of that. And we're so different, but then I feel like we're 2 peas in a pod in that there's the same soul component. So I think what I really had to work on, honestly, why it was different, was I think I knew I really liked him. I knew I was kind of falling in love, but it was the first time I'd ever prayed, Lord, if this is the guy for me, help me to let go of my heart enough to actually fall in love with him.
Oh, wow.
I think it was the first time I'd ever prayed that.
Wow.
Because I could sense that this guardedness this guard that I'd put around my heart, that I'd built up over years of kind of disappointment was there. And I knew I was falling for him, but there was resistance out of fear and self-protection. And so I just said, Lord.
And after that one convo?
No. This is a little bit further down the track. This is after dating for a few months. I felt myself falling in love, but I was like, Lord, you're going to have to free me up to really go here because I'm scared.
Did you get her phone number that night?
That's how. No, I didn't. And that's how I was going to answer your question. Is what was different for me was I didn't get her number and I didn't give her mine. And I think there was in previous interactions or circumstances with girls where it's like, oh, there's something kind of cool here, like, and then that immediately is followed by this sense of anxiety and wanting to control it. And it's like, okay, I got to do everything I can do to lock this down and make sure it works. But by the end of that conversation, I mean, we probably talked for 2.5, 3 hours.
At that party, just
at the party.
Didn't feel that long.
3 hours.
There was just such a sense of like peace and security that if this is from the Lord, then I don't need to worry about it.
Wow.
And then there was that moment where I said, okay, this is the moment that I should probably get a number if I'm going to do it. But I just felt sort of a pause and just said, no, God, this is in your hands. I trust that if we're going to meet again, it will happen.
Beck, were you so annoyed?
No, I wasn't actually. And it didn't hit me weird. And because you know what? I think
not that you're annoying, Cubbie, but if I was having that, I'd be like, and now I go home? I mean, now we have Instagram, but
I knew we would hang out because the friend group, he was so deep in that friend group. I knew it would happen again and soon. But I think there was such a quiet confidence on him, such a sense of security that was so attractive to me. And I think that was part of it. I think the fact that he wasn't kind of rushing and scrambling to like lock this thing down. I don't know. I wonder if that was part of it because I sensed such a quiet strength in him, which immediately made me like go, I really like that guy.
I love this. Cubbie. So are you telling me y'all just walked away and you're like, can't wait to see her again. I'm going to love her forever. And we'll see how God does.
It was I'll see you soon.
Yeah, that was the
confidence.
I'll
see you soon.
You're like, my bros know how to get in touch with her. We're bound to do this again.
Yeah.
How long? Like, give me days for all of our dating friends.
No,
How many
it was a
days?
minute. It was a minute after that.
So you guys saw each other
was a
again?
little. You went out of town pretty soon after that, I think.
Yes.
It was a couple weeks.
I mean,
it was a couple weeks, and at that point, after the couple weeks, I was like, huh. Yeah, I do remember initially.
I mean, because it was it was I mean, I just wrapped the show, but in the midst of working on the show, we were also working on this band. So
Yeah.
all of my free time was devoted to this
Also
band.
people.
And so we were gearing up to head out of town to go to South by Southwest.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of shows leading up to that. So it was just kind of a crazy season, but I had invited her that night to a show, the last show that we played in LA before going to South by.
Uh-huh.
And it was one of those things where in LA you throw out invitations and they're like, yeah, I'll be there. It sounds great. And they never show up. So
That is every town USA where people say I'll be there and don't show up. So,
yeah,
but yes, I get it.
especially LA.
Especially
Yeah,
LA,
yeah, yeah.
and sometimes Nashville.
And sometimes
too.
Nashville, yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So she expressed a lot of interest that night when I told her about the show. I'd love to be there.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, I'll put you on the list. And honestly, didn't think she was going to show. So that was the next time I saw her, was while I was setting up my gear on stage to play the show. I look out into the crowd and there she is right in the middle.
Oh, wow. Did you come with a friend or did you come by yourself?
I think I came
She
by
came by
myself.
herself.
I think I did.
My
And
girl.
then-
Someone it
My
didn't work out.
girl.
Yeah. And so that was kind of our first date was that night, because we ended up hanging out after the show.
Is this
and-
the one your parents were at? That your
Yes.
parents met her? Yeah.
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, your parents meeting her on the second time you've ever seen her
I know.
is
I know.
great.
And
Yeah.
you
Great.
really did read this book. Thank you. I'm so proud of you, friend. I'm so
That's
touched by that.
amazing.
I have
Thank you.
tabs and everything
I
back.
love it. You're
That's so
amazing.
good.
That sounds fun.
Hey, friends, just interrupting this conversation, tell you about one of our incredible partners, Jolie. Oh, y'all, I've got to tell you about the shower head. Listen, I can't even begin to imagine all the money I've spent on skincare and beauty products over the years, and I recently realized that I was completely overlooking a big fundamental step: the water I shower in. I've been all about filtering the water I drink, but I didn't think about the water I shower in. Listen, the Jolie shower head, it's beautiful. It removes chlorine, heavy metals, all that from your shower water to give you your best skin and hair. Chlorine is added to our water systems to disinfect it and kill bacteria, which we appreciate. But chlorine is damaging to our hair and skin and fundamentally causes issues. And Jolie fixes this. And Jolie still gives you strong water pressure, and it fits all showers as the plumbing pipe size is universal. So helpful. Jolie will give you your best skin and hair guaranteed. My friends can head to jolieskinco.com/thatsoundsfun and try it out for yourself with free shipping. If you don't like it, you can return your Jolie for a full refund within 60 days, no questions asked. And another incredible partner I get to tell you about. This episode is sponsored by Ritual. I know spring is almost here and we're all ready to be out in the sunshine as much as possible, getting that vitamin D. And for so many of us women, we are not getting enough vitamin D in our diet. But one of the things I love about Ritual's Essential for Women 18 Plus multivitamin is that it's shown to increase vitamin D levels by 43% in a clinical study. Yes, please. Their Essential for Women 18 Plus multivitamin has high quality, traceable key ingredients and clean bioavailable forms. So, you know, you're getting exactly what's listed on the bottle. You just take 2 capsules a day, which have 9 key nutrients, and the capsules feature a delayed release, which means it dissolves later and is easier on an empty stomach. And it has this great minty essence. I love it. No more shady business. Ritual's Essential for Women 18 Plus is a multivitamin you can actually trust. My friends get 25% off their first month for a limited time. Just go to ritual.com/thatsoundsfun. Start Ritual or add Essentials for Women 18 Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/thatsoundsfun for 25% off. Okay, now back to our conversation with Cubbie and Beck.
That sounds fun.
So that night you go on a date after that. And then do you get her phone number?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Because then you just, what are you going to do? How do you not? Yeah.
Yeah.
He
So
sealed
this
the
is
deal.
15 years ago? So
Yeah.
2010, that's not that long ago. So did you, because I'm like, did you have flip phones? No, we had iPhones. This was not that long ago. It's only 15 years ago. Because what I'm thinking about is we have so many friends who are dating that are listening, like me, your friend Annie here, and thinking like, man, those weeks between seeing him in the show, those are hard. Or the like, now he has my number and now he goes out of town. We don't have this like very solid thing unless both of you are like, no, we had a solid thing. Like we knew. Like, did you know?
I think we knew by the next morning after that date because I mean, that probably sounded really bad out of context.
Quote, pulling it. We're pulling it. We're going to make it when it goes on the internet.
It's the journalism sheet.
There it is. There it is.
So we're wrapping up our date after dinner, and she tells me that she's got to get up early in the morning to fly to a show. She had a show the next day.
Yes, tell this.
And I immediately said, I'd love to take you to the airport, which made no sense at all because I lived in Hollywood, which was about 40 minutes from the airport, and she lived in Manhattan Beach, which was about 5 minutes from the airport.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
So I was going to drive from Hollywood to Manhattan Beach to take her to the
You don't
airport.
have to do
If
that.
he wants to, he does. That's
And
what we know.
she explained to me how ludicrous the idea was. I was like, no, it's not. I will do it. I will be there. And so I go to bed that night, set my alarm, fall asleep immediately. Again, just dead tired in this season. My alarm goes off seemingly moments later, and I look at it, and I say, okay, it's time to get up. And then I start thinking about it, and I realize I'd set my alarm for the moment or the time that I needed to be there, not the time I needed to leave. So I freak out, throw on some clothes, run down to my truck, and just start flying down the freeway. And sure enough, she calls me because I'm already late. And it's like, hey, I'm running a little late, but I'm going to be there. Just hold tight. And I'm, just...
And she
doing-
keeps, the book says, you keep saying, I'm just going to get in a cab.
Yeah,
I'm just going to get in a cab.
Did everything I could do to convince her not to call a cab.
I did eventually have
She
to
finally
do it.
calls a cab, but I
Get there
still
on time.
drive. And the craziest thing happened. I'm pulling into LAX, and a cab pulls right in front of me, and I see the silhouette of a girl in the back of this cab. And I called Rebecca, and I said, "Hey, I think you just pulled right in front of me." And sure enough, she was in the cab right in front of me. Followed her all the way up into the kind of the departures area. We ended up having this like really beautiful moment where we just kind of I was able to just apologize because I felt like such an idiot, but was able to help her check in. And it was so weird because at LAX, you're constantly getting barked at to like, keep moving.
Yeah.
There was this sort of a weird glitch in the matrix where there was no traffic enforcers. We had like probably 10 minutes to just kind of hang out. And
Rest is history.
I remember the moment where she walked away towards security, and she kind of paused and looked back, and we had one of those moments, and it was like, okay,
He did the right thing.
I think this is going to
He
work
recovered
out.
it. He pursued me. You know, that's what it was. I think it was like really, truly going the second mile, or like pursuing me outside of his own like convenience, because it was 100% not convenient even to even attempt it, let alone to have that happen with his alarm and then still follow through. So it said a lot to me about his pursuit of me, and that he was like seriously wanting to make me feel loved and seen. So that was pretty big actually early on, I think.
And y'all probably remember this in this dating relationship and in others, but there is a point in a dating relationship where the season shifts. Winter to spring, where you go like, oh, we're actually doing this. Like, I don't have to. I'm not worried. Am I going to hear from him? I'm not. I'm not like staying up at night because I'm curious. I'm wondering if it's going to happen. I'm staying up at night because I have so many butterflies because it is happening, right? Is that when that switched for you, or did you still have? I guess did you still, once y'all were rolling, did you still have like, am I going to hear from him moments?
We had a shift in our relationship that probably happened 6 months in, I would say. Yeah. Where, and again, I had been hurt, so I was kind of coming in going, I feel like I love this guy. We weren't saying I love you to each other, but we would say I like you a lot, or so, you know, stuff like that. But we knew we were both really, you know, very, very interested. But there was moments, and I talk about it in the book, you know, like where we went on a family vacation and it was the first time I'd brought a boyfriend on a family vacation. And there was just moments where I just felt like some of my expectations were maybe missed. Yeah. And we had to have this sit-down talk where it was just like, I had to kind of wrestle through it a little bit with God, like, Lord, I do believe that I've surrendered this part of my life to you, but I feel really vulnerable. And I really had to kind of say to him, look, I know God's got me, even if this doesn't work out. I'll be okay. But
you had to say that to Cubbie.
But I would love it to work out. But it was that moment of kind of going, hey, you're out or you're in this relationship, because I can't do, you know, these kind of significant moments where I just feel like I'm not really sure. Are you all the way in? Because I'm all the way in. Yeah. But I just need to feel like we're pacing it at the same time. And God had really dealt with him some fear for him and some kind of things that he had to let go in those days prior. And he was ready to go all in. And then it was 3 months later we were engaged.
Oh, wow.
So it was that pivot point of like, okay, we're really going forward super intentionally or not. But God had to do things separately in both of us to bring us to that point of being all in.
What's your version of that? Like that apex moment where where she's asking you if you're all in. Like, back me up 3 weeks. Tell me what was happening in your brain that time.
Yeah. So I had my previous relationship to Rebecca was a girl that I dated when I was living in South Africa.
Previous serious relationship,
Serious.
probably.
Well,
yeah. I mean, you date a little bit after that, but not a serious one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Serious.
Yeah.
Who really kind of set a standard for the type of woman that I could see myself marrying.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Just an amazing woman after God's heart, and just she kind of possessed all the things that I would desire in a wife. And it ended up not working out. And at the time, I was confused by it. But in the season that followed, it was like, okay, God has given me, a glimpse of something to aspire to, and really kept me from not settling, because I knew that did exist. It kind of gave me hope to continue to push forward, even in the midst of Hollywood, where it's very tough to meet a quality woman, and especially one that loves Jesus. But I knew I had this picture of the existence of that type of woman.
Wow.
And so that was really what kind of protected me in a lot of ways in these, less serious relationships, to be like, okay, not really meeting the standard. This is not going to go anywhere. And without that standard, who knows? I may have probably lowered myself and married somebody that I maybe shouldn't have. I don't know. But I know it definitely kind of protected me in a lot of ways. And so now, intro Beck, she's part of my life, and we're getting to know each other. And it became very clear very early on that she not only met that standard, but surpassed it. So now I'm in this place of wrestling with, oh my goodness, the standard that has protected me for the last several years is now kind of being eliminated, and there's this new standard kind of put in place. And so there was definitely a wrestle within me of saying, okay, am I ready to let go of the standard and give in to this new thing and allow myself to fall in love in a way that I had previously, but with completely different, set of parameters. And I think there was the wrestle with that, but also kind of wrestling with letting go of that previous relationship, because I think there was a big part of my heart that was still bound up in that.
Of course. Yeah.
And so it kind of hit that point where there was definitely something holding me back. I couldn't put words on it or words around it kind of when she was really desiring them. So we kind of had these few days apart where I just really kind of got on my face before the Lord and said, God, just help me figure out what's going on internally. And he really showed me, yeah, you're hanging on to this relationship. You're scared to let go of this standard. And over the course of a few days, I was like, all right, Lord, I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to give myself to this new thing and allow you to kind of take it where you want to take it. And so we were able to kind of convene over this dinner, and it was, again, one of those movie moments where the world just kind of disappeared around us, and we were just locked in this beautiful Holy Spirit, beautiful conversation. So that was
it was like
where,
we were in San Diego and right on the street, I think a little Italian restaurant, but it was almost like you're in France or something. You're just right there.
Italy. Little Italy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think we were, right? But it was like so much going on around us, but we were just in this little bubble of very significant conversation where it could have gone one way or the other. And I'm so thankful that it went the way that it did.
Yeah. I think often we feel the most confusion and sadness when we don't know what's going on in the other person. And so to be on the other side of it, and y'all be able to reflect through the book, but also in this, of going like, it is to double down on the winter thing. It is what is happening to the seed underground. And there are times where you are having to stand back and go, there is a seed here, but I cannot see if it's growing. And you're going, it's growing, it's growing, but I can't talk about it either because I'm figuring it out. And so I think there's so much hope when we remember that there's a lot of the story we don't know.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a romantic partner or a work thing or a church thing or whatever, to go like, oh, there's just so much I don't know. So I can just trust God because God does know. I mean, so many times I prayed like, God, are you talking to him?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
are you dealing with him? Because I can see you're dealing with me, but are you dealing with him?
Yes.
And so to hear the like other side of,
yeah.
God was dealing with both of you independently.
Mm.
Could you have messed this up? You think you could have missed each other?
I think we could have.
That probably was the moment where if it was going to happen, it could have. I mean, I also had some fear while we were engaged. That was probably a moment too, because, you know, the band with Pumped Up Kicks was rising so fast right when we were, you know, planning our engagement, that they literally had a window of a couple weeks where we could get married, or it was going to be a year. And so we were planning this.
Nah, dog. We are not waiting a year.
I have waited my whole life, for this person.
I don't care how pumped up these cakes are. We are not getting married in a year. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So we had 4 months to plan, you know, this wedding of my life. And so it was a really stressful time. And I had to really go to God and go, Lord, you know, I know we've still got stuff to work on. We've got some communication things. We've got some things that, you know, we're not all the way there. We were doing premarital counseling, but he was gone a lot. I was still doing shows. And so it's like, you know, we're still trying to kind of get to know each other and grow closer in the midst of this whirlwind engagement. And only 9 months of dating before that. Yeah. So there was some vulnerability and fear that I had to work through. So I think there was a couple moments where it could have gone either way. But I'm just so thankful that, like, his grace was on it. And, you know, we're sitting here 14 years later, just stronger than ever, having weathered a lot of things. And just thankful because the pain and the winter has drawn us closer in marriage and given us what I now call marriage equity. Like, I just feel like we've got this kind of equity to draw from where we've clung to each other and cried together and, like, struggled together and been really vulnerable and had hard chats and, like, you know, parented together. We've done a lot, and it just gets greater. It gets sweeter when you draw closer to God and each other through those times. And there is meaning in it. There is purpose in it. Yeah. I'm thankful for that now.
One of the things you talk about in the book, Cubbie, is the prophetic part of the world, like, and how prophetic voices mattered to you, and still, I assume, still matter to you some. Yeah. Will you, even because when we're talking about this, Bex, you're like, yeah, we could have missed this, but God's grace.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, okay, Beck, well, could you have missed it or God's grace? Like, is there a world? The reason this ties to prophetic voices to me is I'm kind of thinking like, man, there are people who someone has given them a word about what God's going to do in their life, but they're still sitting in the winter and they feel like they've missed it. So can you miss what God has for you? Or can you not? And what do you do when you're waiting on the thing that you think God's promised you?
And Cubbie.
Just a little question featuring Beck and Cubbie.
Just
a little light.
You can also be like, Annie, I don't want to do that. It's a Wednesday afternoon. Don't make me.
Theologian Cubbie.
Yeah.
Some deep
You're the youth
thoughts.
pastor, so let's get it.
I mean, there's definitely a lot there to unpack, and a lot there that probably theologians that have devoted their life to fate versus free will could probably speak on more eloquently. But I think in just looking at our situation, and I heard somebody say recently that the most personal is generally the most universal.
Yeah.
And I love that God has given us a story that we're able to share. And part of the prophetic word that was even shared, I mean, spoken over us in early engagement and early marriage, was that we'd be stronger together than we were apart.
Yeah.
And we were obviously both, you know, kind of doing our own thing, and God had us on these paths doing stuff for Him. But then together, I've just seen such a beauty in us being able to come together and seeing the fulfillment of that word, us truly being stronger together.
Probably seeing it more now than ever.
Yeah.
Just with the book and partnering on this and speaking together and all of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think when there is rightness on something, I think God will see it through. I think even, you know, going back to me having that moment of being okay not getting her number that night and just resting and, okay, God, this is in your hands. And I think as long as we're submitting things to His hands, I think He will see it through the way He is, which is in alignment with His will. Yeah. I think we can probably get in the way, but I think His will continually draw us back to where we need to be. Yeah. And it's tough to say, because had I not gotten on my face before the Lord to really search what was going on in my heart that was keeping me kind of withdrawn from her and really giving myself to this relationship, yeah, it may have been a different outcome. But if the two of us being together was the Lord's will, it could have come around after that night. That could have been the catalyst to me getting on my face and figuring out what was going on and then coming back to her. And it may have delayed things a bit of time, but I think there was just such a rightness on this union that I think he would have seen it through one way or another.
Yeah.
And I think there is some bad theology that we can kind of drop outside of the perfect will of the Lord. Like there's the perfect will and
good,
the will.
pleasing, and perfect. All those.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think if we're submitting ourselves to him
Yes.
and not getting ahead of him, I think we are in his will as long as we're honoring him and seeking first the kingdom of God.
That's good. Thank you. Beck, why is it the right time to write this book?
The book really wasn't our idea, and there was a catalyst that came, I think, from the outside and a need that we were made aware of through someone else. And there was something about that advocacy piece of somebody else going, I see a story in you that the world needs to hear right now. That was huge. Because we had said early in marriage, I think we'll probably write a book at some point, way down the track. I think we probably would have thought it was further away than now.
Yeah.
But this producer from Unsung Hero, the movie that came out about my family last year, came to us and said, there's a lot of discouragement in the Christian community right now about faith, a lot of people deconstructing, and about relationships and about marriage and about family and all of it. Singleness, or just all of it. There's just so much discouragement, and I think your story needs to be heard right now.
Wow.
And it really resonated with us, and we're like, yeah. And then in the process of writing the book, while this movie's coming out about my family, I mean, it was a lot. Last year was a lot of diving in on my story so hardcore in every aspect of it,
And everyone else getting to see it.
Yeah. And I mean, reflect on my, because of the movie, reflecting on my story and doing a lot of media around it. But then, looking at pictures. There's pictures in the book of, our lives separately and then together, and early dating and, just all of it. And
The
so
honeymoon
it
one
felt
is
vulnerable.
so cute of y'all laying on the beach. The one on the beach is so cute. I love that one.
Yeah. But
really
the vulnerability, I mean, I just think it's been so worth it. And we've even personally, just even outside of the ministry value that we're seeing, because we are speaking and doing things together now. Even last night we did a NASCAR event together.
Yeah.
And it's so sweet to just be doing it together. I think much of my journey with ministry has been alone.
Yeah.
And the unity in this, like we're doing Fox and Friends and like Good Morning America and things like this, but we're doing it together, and I'm so excited to do it.
Yeah.
So I just think it does feel, Annie, like it's for such a time as this. Like I think people, before we even say anything, I think people seeing a married couple doing something together, that alone, our countenances and the joy in relationship, that speaks to a world that is stressed and sad and discouraged. So I'm excited about just that component, like the symbolism of marriage. And not that we're getting it perfect. My goodness, we talk in the book a lot about our inadequacies and our insecurities and the ways that we've navigated things imperfectly, because it's, there's a lot of that too. And we want to be really authentic. But we really do want to be where God wants us. And we just sense such a rightness in this timing. It's really sweet and really redemptive.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Hey, friends, just interrupting this conversation one more time to tell you about one of our incredible partners, Hiya Health. My nephew, Sammy's been taking his Hiya Health vitamins, and we asked him recently what he thought about him. He said, and I quote, "They're good." A man of few words, but you know what? He's taking his vitamins every day, and they don't have sugar or gummy junk in them, so we're all happy about that. And if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, I need you to know Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods, a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with 55-plus whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. You just scoop it out and shake it up with milk or any non-dairy beverage. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya. My friends, get 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you've got to go to hiyahealth.com hiyahealth.com/thatsoundsfun. Again, that's hiyahealth.com/thatsoundsfun to get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. And one more incredible partner I get to tell you about, Wayfair. When my team was in New York last month, I got to show them my apartment here. And when they walked in, we, of course, talked about my Wayfair furniture. They knew, like you do, that my whole New York apartment is almost exclusively furnished by Wayfair. And they got to see the couch that I'm in love with. I genuinely love Wayfair's furniture. So if you're needing to refresh some things around your house this spring, get on that Wayfair app if you dare. It is so fun. There's truly something for every style and every home, no matter the size of your space or your budget. You get easy, free delivery, even on the big stuff, and they will help you set it up. There is so much good to choose from. You can find all your spring living essentials, your storage solutions, decor, and more all in one place. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that is just your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And now back to finish up our conversation with Cubbie and Beck.
That sounds fun.
In your family, what season are y'all in?
In our little Fink family.
Yeah, in the Fink family and the five of y'all.
It feels spring-like to me. And we come out of that winter season of miscarriages and vocational challenges and Cub's mom dying. I mean, it was a deep, deep winter.
Yes.
Me dealing with burnout from music, just a lot of hard. And we came out into a certain kind of spring.
Yeah.
This feels like spring 2.0 to me. It just feels so much more hopeful, like I'm dreaming again. I think even in that early spring before, and we've gone through little winters since then, in that 7 years. But I just feel like this feels different. I'm dreaming. It's like I'm getting my head up, out of the water of kind of survival mode. And I think a lot of us live in survival mode, if we're honest. Like we're just trying to navigate the blows of life and keep our head above water. And that's been a lot of my life, honestly.
You also, I want people to hear without details. I just want to say you've also done a lot of work.
I have.
You are like having conversations, going to counseling.
A lot of counseling.
You're
yes.
also ushering in spring and your head's coming above water because you've put like buoys on your arms and you're kicking your legs.
Thank you that you know that about me.
Yeah, I think, am I wrong, Cody? Do you think that's right?
No, it's totally right.
I just feel like I want to honor the work you're putting in of you're letting God do God's part, but you are absolutely doing your part to have your head above water too.
Thank you. I have great mentors. I am seeking counsel actively. I'm in counsel. I have healing prayer partners. A prayer team. I really am surrounded by just gold when it comes to people, including you. Just friends that really champion me and my heart and are encouraging. So the dreaming again is the sum of those parts. It's a lot, but honestly, it's the grace of God too. Because I look back and I go, Lord, you've been so kind and above and beyond generous to me, and I know I'm not like you don't deserve this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Cubbie, would you say spring as well? What would you say for seasonal for the family?
I would agree. Yeah. It's just a very sweet season. And I think kind of the beauty of this spring that Beck alluded to a little while ago is kind of the fruition of what we felt the first kind of transition into spring. And I think that was the beauty of that coming out of winter into the spring season was that it was not based on anything tangible.
Yeah.
I think we can often look to the tangible thing that's going to bring us out of the winter season, bring us out of the hard thing.
Good.
It's, the job or the girlfriend or the, whatever it might be. We're looking to the thing to bring us out of this hard place. God didn't drop a job in my lap. He didn't do anything. She didn't fall pregnant and suddenly, now we're in the spring. It was, no, he did it from the inside out.
Yeah.
It was really a dawning
good.
of spring in our heart because he started speaking again. We felt his presence. We felt inspiration and vision, and that was the dawning of spring. And shortly thereafter that, then we got the tangible, proof of that spring. She did fall pregnant shortly after that.
Yeah.
But so much of what was promised in that kind of transition of this dawning spring, we're starting to see the fruition of now in this spring, and just the beauty of being able to step into projects together and, new film and TV projects and music and all this stuff. It's just, it was kind of like this and there's been ups and downs in the midst of it, but just feeling like we're stepping into fruition is really kind of the beauty of this season.
Yeah.
You were very quietly a huge part of Unsung Hero, Cubbie, which I think is very cool. They're like, I mean, your name is places, but for non-movie people, we don't know when we see your name in all those places what an important role you had. But I love that it was the Small Bone family movie about. Do you know my hot take that Rebecca St. James is an unsung hero in that movie? I wish more people said it out loud. I'm like, yes, the mom, yes. Unsung, but like, I would like to say some of us cleaned toilets and some of us sang on stages and unsung hero as well.
Thank you.
But I just think that's cool that you're got to be a part of that too.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a big part of it.
So special.
Okay, I'd like to finish with a question. You both talk about it in the book. Talk about true love waits and what an important part and really a forming part of your teenage life that was. And for me too, for a lot of us listening, there are a lot of different feelings coming as we're in our 40s, right? About the impact of what was. I genuinely believe was a heart to help us stay pure that came out in a bunch of sideways ways the older we got. And some very lovely ways that God has used to protect us.
Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit about why you wrote about it in the book, why, and your relationship now? I'd love for you both to do that, but I'll start with you, Beck, of like, what's your relationship now with that idea and that history that's tied so closely to you? And, in ways you probably love and don't love, you're the face of that for some people.
For some people.
And so will you talk a little about your relationship with and what your growth has been? Like, what's God done in you around that?
Thank you for asking about it. I think when we talk about this, and we do say this in the book, I think we have compassion for people that experienced a very legalistic form of the True Love Waits movement and feel that they were harmed by it. I think there's a sense of compassion and sadness around that. So there's empathy for those that had wounding from that era. For me, for us, and we can only speak from our own experience. Like, we can only just say what we experienced. But for us, it was great. Like, there was gold in it. There was good in it. It encouraged me to live out something that I was already committed to. You know, seeing hundreds of thousands of other young people saying, God, we want to honor you.
Yeah.
We want to live in holiness, like the Bible talks about. That was beautiful. Yeah. Having a purity wing was beautiful. It did help put boundaries around dating. And I was dating. I was not one of the people that was like, I'm not going to kiss till I'm married, or I'm not going to date. I dated, but I was pretty intentional about it. So I think for me it was good. And I always, when I spoke about like purity around the world, and I did, even in cultures that, I feel like at that time America was pretty sympathetic to it.
Yeah.
Other cultures in Europe, not so much. But I still would speak about it there. But I would generally try to just say, look, there's forgiveness, there's grace. We all mess up. We all need the grace of God. Like, we all have to have it. Like, so it's not this better than you. It's not this shame on you. I mean, our pastor says the gospel is shame off you, not shame on you. And beautiful. That, I think, when you look at the purity movement through that lens, it's a whole different thing. But for us, it was good. What would you say to that, Cub?
I would agree. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely good. I think the movement resonated with decisions we had already made.
Yeah.
And decisions that we valued, and I think the core of the movement was based on a very beautiful intention to uphold this standard that God has set out for us for our good.
Yeah. And I mean, it's holiness in every area. It's not just this area.
Right.
He calls us to holiness in every area. That's a biblical
100%.
idea.
That's right.
And I think that's where it gets a little tricky, because holiness in this area is so tied up with our emotions and our hormones and what culture's telling us, and it's natural and this and that. I mean, if it was a movement upholding, one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not murder, I don't think anybody be arguing like, that's
true love doesn't kill.
It doesn't kill.
Yeah.
But because it's tied to sex, it just becomes very emotional, and it's tied to so many other things, and it can get very painful when it's implied improperly. And I think that's kind of been my encouragement, even as we've spoken to a lot of the hard places of our lives, I think there's always a natural intention to want to blame God for our hurt. And I think my takeaway from it, even looking back on my own life, is I think it's wise for us to not blame God for man's shortcomings. And I think there was a lot of people that were hurt in that moment, but it wasn't God. It wasn't God trying to withhold something from you. He placed this standard for our benefit, for the benefit of a strong marriage, for the benefit of great relationships. And unfortunately, the church is a beautiful thing, but it's run by imperfect people, and imperfect people apply things imperfectly. And I think because of the imperfect application of something that was beautiful, there was some fallout and there was some hurt, and we empathize with that, and that breaks our heart that people were hurt by something that was beautifully intended. But to try to draw that delineation to not blame God for man's shortcomings is kind of my encouragement.
And stemming off of that, I think probably my last thought would be we encourage parents especially to wrestle through this.
Yeah, because you are raising
because it affects the next generation.
Yes,
and so if we go, purity doesn't matter, holiness in that area doesn't matter, that affects our kids.
Yes.
Like we got to think through, what do we want for our kids?
Yes.
And we have 3 children. And we are actively speaking to them about the importance of honoring God in every area, including this one. And it's not about legalism. Actually, it's about their freedom. It's about living their best life.
Yes.
And that God can free up their sexuality. I mean, it is verified with research that Christians have better sex. So it's like the boundaries that God gives us around this is not hurting Christians with sex.
Pleasant
it's actually
places,
helping us.
That's right.
So
Christians.
Married Christians, yes. Sorry, I thought that was implied, but yes. Let me explicitly say that married Christians are having better sex. But speaking to our kids freely about that and the joy of it and the beauty of it. And it's not about shame. It's about God having a perfect and better way.
Yeah. I think it's I joke sometimes that God listens to 15-year-old Annie's prayers and agreements versus 44. I'm like, I didn't mean it. If I didn't know it was going to go like this, I'm not sure. And the Lord's like, nah, she was right. She was the commitment she made is the one, and the decisions I made about Jesus as a kid. Yeah. God still holds me to when I get and goes like, no, that was pure. Your heart was pure, and so there's often the thing the Lord's been doing in me around this so much lately, because I grew up like y'all too, where this was a part of my youth group understanding. Yep. And to this day, I will tell you, like you said, Cubbie, none of the adults that I experienced were trying to give us bad theology.
No.
They were doing the best they could coming out of their own stories and leading the next generation. So more, it's like you said, Beck, it is my concern of how we lead the next generation. And then saying okay, what is the good I can pull from that? And God's protection is better than any experience that I haven't had.
Yes.
And so I just think, man, God, there's ways that God has stepped in. There was a recent step in of the Lord where he stopped me. And the level of protection, I just went I didn't know what I was getting myself into. The Lord did, and he just protected me.
Wow.
And so over and over, I sense the reminder for our generation, particularly when it comes to sex and true love waits and what we grew up with, is can you find his protection in the midst of the parts that. Now, there are people who had different experiences with adults than we did. And you're right. Yes. There are people who had more legalistic
experiences.
Yes, than I did. But God's protection is one of his best qualities.
Absolutely.
It feels like. Yeah. So thank y'all for talking about that. I feel like so many of us are thinking about that as we're raising the next generation.
100%. Yeah. And there can be a sense of confusion too. What was that? And how do I reflect on that? But it's important to press into it, I think. Yeah. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, of course. Okay, is there anything we didn't talk about you want to make sure we talk about? I'm going to ask you what sounds fun to you. I hope you're prepared. But is there anything we left out that you want to make sure we say?
I think we covered
a lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
I'm grateful for both of you. Okay, Beck, I'll start with you. So Cubbie has a little more time to think. Because the show is called That Sounds Fun. Rebecca St. James.
It's so funny.
Tell me what sounds fun to you.
You know what sounds fun to me right now in winter is tropical waters that are warm, that I can just swim in. You know, this Aussie girl is still alive and well, and she longs for that.
Yeah.
So hoping to head south and get some of that sometime soon.
Yeah. I follow a girl from Australia. No, I think she's from New Zealand. From Below Deck, the show on Bravo.
Okay.
She's a chief stew. Her name's Asia.
Okay.
And she's so all of her posts right now are at the beach. I'm like, oh, Asia, you're living right.
Amazing.
I bet it feels great.
Yeah.
Okay, Cubbie Fink, because the show is called That Sounds Fun, tell me what sounds fun to you.
I mean, that's kind of easy. Anything involving a motor and wheels.
Okay.
Preferably 2 wheels.
Really? Are you a motorcycle guy?
Oh, yeah.
I love
Okay.
riding
And our
motorcycles.
4-year-old, oh my goodness, is
He's
Cubbie's
a-
little mini me.
No.
He's a man
just
after my own
all
heart.
about it.
He's obsessed. He's obsessed.
Do you have like a
So-
little sidecar for him yet?
I mean, I just put him on the front. We've got a little mini
yeah.
bike that I
Yeah,
ride
yeah,
him
yeah.
around on, and he probably won't listen to this, but we did buy him a little dirt bike for Christmas that Beck got a little apprehensive about. So we're gonna hold it.
Cubbie,
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
4 years old.
We're gonna hold it for
I
a
don't
couple
need
of
that
months.
ER visit. I really don't.
But yeah,
Like we're trying to launch a book. We don't need the enemy to have any opportunity.
Nope.
Okay, so do you have like a proper motorcycle currently in your life?
Oh, a few.
Oh,
There's a collection. Yeah.
Wow. What? A collection is like.
He's got stories for days on pre-married and kids Cubbie versus now.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
like in the book, you won't put your legs over a wall when you are taking a picture because you're like, I can't do that as a dad. I can't risk falling off this building.
I mean,
so
12 stories up.
it's
yeah.
changed how you ride motorcycles too.
yeah. I mean, it's tamed me.
that's probably
tamed me
good.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I still enjoy. I
It's
mean,
still
I
living his best life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And y'all live kind of out. Y'all aren't like in the center of the city, so it gives you a little more space.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Which is nice.
Like, do you take the motorcycle every day somewhere? Is it like your main vehicle?
Oh,
no, the riding on the road has pretty much ceased since shortly after we got married. So
Okay.
His wife's
fun,
like, I really want you alive.
Yeah.
I want you to stay
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah. So it's just dirt biking.
Yes.
Oh, and in the desert, I'm totally cool with the desert. You know, you go out in the desert, you
Wild.
go
Okay.
out there in nature. And
On the roads in the desert?
No,
Or-
on the actual
sand.
dirt. Yeah, dirt, sand.
Back.
I'm good with that. But the roads.
So next time you're in Arizona.
Right.
Cubbie.
right.
Well, and when we lived in California,
Yeah,
you
fair,
know,
fair,
he
fair,
could
fair,
do
fair.
that.
Yeah.
He could do that quite a lot.
That's right.
But it's the other drivers that I trust
Yeah.
his driving ability. I just don't trust the people around him.
I mean, just so much of your skin is exposed to the world.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is like, it's just so close to the road.
And your
I mean,
head and
it's-
your brain and,
And
all
you're-
that.
yeah.
Anyone that tells me they're buying a motorcycle, I try and to discourage them.
Do you?
I do. I mean, especially road riding.
Do
I mean,
you,
it's,
Cubbie?
I
This
do.
is news to me. Wow.
I mean, it's one of the more dangerous things you can do, especially on the road. But growing up riding dirt bikes, the skills that I learned in the dirt have saved my life multiple times on the road.
Oh, wow.
A lot of guys just jump on a street bike and
Yeah, and go
end
for
up
it.
getting hurt, which is
True love dirt bikes.
True
That's what we
love
learned
dirt
today. It
bikes.
does not ride on the road. True love dirt bikes.
that's
So,
right. That's right.
Thank you guys for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
So
we
grateful.
love you so
Oh my
much.
gosh, I love you
We're
too.
so
Really
grateful for
grateful.
you, kindred spirit.
Oh, you guys, aren't they the best? I love them so much. I'm so grateful for like the deep dive they were willing to do on this conversation. And yeah, I just really respect them both. I love them both. So make sure you grab your copy of Lasting Ever wherever you love to buy books, and go follow Cubbie and Beck on social media. Tell them thank you for being on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, you can go back and listen to 374, the first time Beck was on the podcast, or 878 with her brothers, Joel and Luke, for King and Country. If you have any questions from this episode, make sure you drop them in the Q&A box on your Spotify app if you're a Spotify listener like me, or send them straight to us on Instagram at That Sounds Fun Podcast, and we will answer them for you there. If you need anything else from me, you know I'm embarrassingly easy to find. Annie F. Downs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the places you may need me. That is how you can find me. Oh, and TikTok too. Oh, yeah. And New York. I think that's it for me today, friends. Go out or stay home. Do something that sounds fun to you, and I will do the same. Today, what sounds fun to me as the weather is warming up is getting outside. I'm going to get outside today. I hope you do the same. Y'all have a great week. We'll actually see you back here on Thursday for another episode of Always Annie. We'll see y'all then.
That sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
Oh, that sounds fun. Check 1, Round two on the microphone. Annie F. Downs in your car to your home. Every week it's something new. A deep talk or an interview. She'll make you laugh, she'll make you cry. When it's dark out, she's a light.